Okay, I just need to share the screen.
Yeah, you can share now.
Do you see it?
No.
It takes a while. Okay, can you see it now?
Yeah.
Great. So the topic of today's presentation is philosophical and cross-cultural views on Samadhi. And we'll start. So what is Samadhi? It comes from a Sanskrit word samadha, to bring together, and it means union of individual and universal consciousness. And in Yoga Sutras, Patanjali describes it as the final limb of Ashtanga Yoga. It's a complete absorption in the object of meditation. So that's how it's written in the Yoga Sutras. Tasyapi nirodhe sarva nirodha nirbija samadhi. Tasya, of that preventative impression, api also nirodha, on the non-operation, sarva, all nirodha resulting from that non-operation, nirbijan, not motivated by the mental emotional energy, samadhi, continuous effortless linkage of the attention to the higher concentration force. And so what it means is that the continuous effortless linkage of the attention to the higher concentration force, which is not motivated by these mental, emotional energy, occurs when there is non-operation, even of that preventative impression which caused the suppression of all other lower memories. It is very complicated, but in essence, it means the complete merge of the observer and what is being observed. There is also a commentary on this in the book, and it says, when all the impressions cease to be activated, when they all seem to be finished for good, then the highest contemplation occurs. That is a contemplation which is not motivated from this end of existence. It is controlled by and operated by the spiritual level of existence, from the other side of life, the Chitakash. So let's explore Tantric view, how it's been described by Sri Anandamurti very shortly. So Samadhi is culmination of sadhana, merging unit consciousness with cosmic consciousness. There are two types, Savikalpa Samadhi and Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Sarvikalpa means merging, while subtle self remains. So it's merging, which is not complete, You still feel the Supreme Consciousness as a separate entity, and you feel yourself as a separate entity. In Nirvikalpa Samadhi, it's complete dissolution of self. Like water, ocean, and the drop in the ocean. You become the ocean. What is the Supreme Entity? How should human beings try to understand him? When a doll made of salt wants to fathom the depths of the ocean, the doll itself becomes lost in the ocean. In Buddhism, in different types of Buddhism, it means different things. So in Theravada Buddhism, Samadhi often is linked to jnana, a series of meditative absorptions where the mind becomes more refined, moving from coarse thought to pure, objectless awareness. Or, as it's written on the screen, Samadhi is experienced as deep concentration. Jnana, which leads to Nibbana or Nirvana. In Mahayana Buddhism, it is seen as part of the threefold training: Sila, Samadhi, and Prajna, with Samadhi serving as the bridge to direct insight into emptiness. And in Tibetan Buddhism, it is linked with Rigpa, primordial awareness. In Dhammapada, the Buddha compares the concentrated mind to a steady flame untouched by the wind. So in Buddhism, it's more connected to the idea of emptiness. So it's experienced as, it's described as complete emptiness. In Christian mystical tradition, it's different. Usually the union with God is experienced through prayer, contemplation, surrender of personal will, but still mostly there remains the two different entities and the connection between them. So me and the God. Yet, two people, Meister Eckhart and Teresa of Avila, they actually both explored the concept of union with God through their approaches, though their approach is different in some respect. But Eckhart emphasized a merging of the soul with God, potentially to the point of identity, while Teresa focused on a more relational, still deeply intimate union through prayer and spiritual growth. Teresa also describes the soul as a drop of water, yes, merging into the vast ocean of God's love. There are different traditions also, like Sufism, Taoism, some indigenous traditions who see Samadhi differently as well. For example, in Sufi tradition, there is a word pana, and it means the passing away or annihilation of the self. Not physical death, but the dissolution of the ego, desires, and sense of separateness, until nothing remains but the awareness of God. There is another word, bhaka. The remaining or subsisting in God, a state after pana, the first one, where the seeker returns to life, but now lives through God's qualities and will. So, in the classic Sufi sequence, Fana is the disappearance of the drop in the ocean, while Baka is the ocean living through the drop. There are some stories about that. For example, Rabbi al-Adawiya, which was a 8th century mystic, was seen running through the streets of Basra, carrying a torch in one hand and a basket of water in the other. When asked, she said, "I wish to burn heaven with this torch and extinguish hell with this water, so that God is loved for his own sake, not for reward or fear." And this captures Pana as the burning away of self-interest in the divine relationship, leading to Baka in pure love. Also, very inspiring quote from Rumi: "I vanished and the beloved appeared. I ran from myself and become the self of all." So here is a very short comparison of all the traditions and how they see Samadhi. Tantra is unity with cosmic consciousness, Christianity, union with God, Buddhism, emptiness, non-self, Sufism, annihilation in God, and Taoism, return to Tao. We can also this can be helpful to see how we can use metaphors for Samadhi. For example, ocean, the surface may have waves, thoughts, but in Samadhi the awareness rests in the deep, unmoving layers of the ocean. Or a lamp in the windless room, the flame doesn't flicker. In the same way, the mind is in Samadhi remains steady. Or mountains stillness. Just as mountains endure storms without moving, the mind in Samadhi remains unshaken by sensory input. So, despite there being differences in language, in what metaphors we use, in what religion we come from, it all of course shapes our path, but the idea remains the same. In some traditions, it's merging, and in some, for example, in Christianity, it's communion. The communication stays. You don't merge completely, but you experience it as a relationship. It can be explored through concentration, devotion, ritual, surrender. But in the end, it's the transcendence of ego-bound identity. So all traditions point beyond the separate self to the mind that is still. The whole universe surrenders, as it was told by Lao Tzu. So that's it. Very short presentation, but I would like to suggest these two first books. They seem to be interesting. I will look into them as well. And the three last books, very, very traditional and very, not traditional, but the ones that I used for the presentation. So if you have any questions, please ask.
Thank you for the presentation, Oscar.
Beautiful slides.
The Ken Wilber is very famous for creating the field of psychology that is called integral psychology. He's quite important figure in that respect. So he's like the continuing with the research in transpersonal psychology, different like states of oneness and non-duality. Can you just share again what's the name of the first book? I'm actually very curious about this one. Yoga and Immortality. I see, I found it. Yoga, Immortality and Freedom. Very interesting. I've never come across this one. Yeah, of course, if you read yoga psychology, you will find different descriptions of various types of samadhis by Sri Shanandamurti.
Yes, it's also going to be interesting to continue this topic because the next one is gonna be about samadhi as well, but from a different approach. Less cultural, but more, I think, psychological influence of samadhi.
Yeah. Well, are there any questions or can we close it then? Can we stop recording, please?